Hello, I'm Matt Galloway, and this is The Current Podcast. As anyone planning a roast beef dinner this holiday season will know, the meat may hopefully be tender, but the price tag can be tough to swallow. Beef prices have been hitting record highs, climbing more than 17% over the last year. There are a number of factors for the sticker shock at the meat counter, and we begin this morning at the source with the ranchers. They are having a profitable year, but they're also making some tough choices. Our producer, Alison Dempster, caught up with one farmer in southern Alberta.
There you go. Gate's closed. My name is Greg Hawkwood. I live in the Madden area, which is northwest of Calgary, and we're ranchers out here, and we run 250 head of commercial beef cattle.
The size of your herd, how has it changed in recent years?
We used to be around that 280, 290, and we've been slowly declining because of the situation that we're in with the drought. We definitely need moisture, especially snow. Usually, if we get the big snows in March, something they're wet and heavy, it helps kind of replenish, but we need a lot of it because the soil is so dry, and it's and the dugouts and the sloughs and all the riparian areas are dry. So let's see right here. We're standing in our bred heifer pen, and they'll start calving here in the 1st of March. This is where we keep them and give them a little extra feed so we can get a little more grow on them. And they're standing here looking at us, eating their feed out of their trough, and they're full and got nothing to talk about.
How would you describe the market right now?
That's a very good question. We hear on the news and everybody how expensive beef is in the stores. Well, the reason that came about was it all started about 5 years ago when we got a drought that came into Alberta, southern Saskatchewan. And with that drought, as things progressed, the grasslands and everything couldn't produce like they normally do. So the ranchers and the farmers had to downsize. If you overgraze, and when it does come back, the moisture, it takes years to get that land back into production properly. So we downsize, cut your herds down just so that it stays sustainable with the grass.
What's it like to be making these decisions?
It's difficult because we're a way of life. We're proud of how we raise our cattle and what we do. And it's a tough decision to downsize because we've put years and years into these animals, and then you got to sell them off. It's a sad thing, but it's just a necessity that we have to do. Also, in that time, the prices started getting higher because of supply and demand, because the cow herd was being sold off, and as it got going here, in the last two years, the beef industry, a lot of the older ranchers, they saw an opportunity. Maybe it's time to get out because of the beef prices. They've never had such high prices, so they sold off their herds. So it's a tough situation, but on the other hand, with the price of calves and cows have gone up the way they have, this is the most profit we've ever made in ever. So it's a kind of nice that the guys at the coffee shop or whatever, we've got a little extra jingle in our jeans. So it's kind of nice. It's kind of nice. But as consumers, I can see where they're disappointed too. But too is they got to remember everything, all their prices went up. Well, so do ours. We still got to go to the same grocery stores. We still got to buy the same fuel, fertilizers, all our inputs, machinery and everything have gone way up. So actually in the end, we've done really well this year, but we still got all the major costs of our inputs to produce the feed to grow these cattle.
Greg Hawkwood ranches and farms in Rockview County, north of Calgary. After the ranch, the next stop is naturally the butcher shop. And despite the high prices, Maya Fontaine has her eye on a special cut of sirloin.
I was actually looking at that one. It looks quite tempting. Yeah, it's very lovely. This one is a top sirloin. It's $62. I mean, I haven't noticed a big difference between what I'm paying here and then what I'm paying at a big box grocery store. It's high everywhere.
Sean Miller is the owner and operator of Miller's Meats, a family butcher shop in Winnipeg. He is shocked at the prices these days, but happy that customers are still coming through his door.
The changes I've seen over the last 5 years in the beef industry have been pretty drastic. Obviously, the price has gone up substantially. A ribeye years ago used to be around $10 a steak, and now we're sitting at anywhere from $20 to $30, depending on the grade. Even some of the offcuts that used to be cheap are no longer cheap. Chuck roasts, short ribs, tri-tips, flank steaks, skirt steaks, all those things used to be trim, and now they're actual cuts that people are wanting, and they're demanding a big dollar amount from them. It is a little shocking. I will say, however, that a lot of people aren't shying away from buying beef, though. We're still seeing a strong demand for it.
Sylvain Charlebois is a professor and senior director of the Agri-Food Analytics Lab at Dalhousie University, also a visiting scholar at McGill University in Montreal. Sylvain, good morning.
Good morning, Matt.
Why are beef prices so high?
I think you got a piece of the story with your few guests already. I mean, if you go back to 2014, we've gone through this phase before. In 2014, there was a drought making feed costs higher, and there was a bit of a sell-off at the time. But cattle producers did reinvest in their herds, thinking that the economy was there. You need a strong economy to see more consumers buying beef. It's a premium product, but also they felt more confident about the future in general, and costs to produce were somewhat predictable. This time around, it's different. Why? Well, the drought actually impacted most of the continent, and the problems are also in the U.S., not just in Canada. I mean, prices are way up in the U.S. as well. And so now, as your rancher did say, a lot of people are just exiting because they're cashing out because prices are good, and they've gone through a lot with mad cow and everything else.
And so if they cash out, I mean, it takes a long time, right, for cattle production to be ramped back up. It's not as though you can flick a switch and suddenly you have more cattle on the feedlot.
It's a 2-year cycle, Matt. Compared to pork or chicken, the production cycle for chickens is basically 8-9 weeks, and for pork, it's 3 to 4 months. So they do have that luxury of they're able to bounce back and recover much more quickly. With cattle, when you're in some sort of an inventory problem, if you're experiencing some inventory problems, you're in for a while. You're going to be experiencing these problems for a while.
What impact does that have on food inflation month to month? I mean, we're talking specifically about beef prices, and we'll come back to that in a moment. But if you take a look at, as I said, the sticker shock that people feel when they look at the grocery bill, what is the impact of this on the larger story of food inflation?
It's significant. If you go back to Monday's numbers with Statistics Canada, so we were being told that the food inflation rate in grocery stores is at 4.7%. If you take out meat, you go down to 2.8%. So it's big. It's quite significant. And so obviously the problem with beef is affecting meat counter economics altogether, because you see people are spooked by higher beef prices, so they're pivoting and they're going for chicken or pork. But guess what's going on right now? There's pressure on those two other items of the meat trifecta. And so prices for chicken and pork are also rising as a result of what's going on with beef.
And we see this in the United States, conversations around this, would importing more beef help bring the prices down?
Absolutely. And this is probably the most surprising thing to me with what's going on with beef prices. In the U.S., where beef prices have been skyrocketing, not as much as here in Canada, but they've been skyrocketing, and Americans have been quite vocal. The President Trump, actually launched an investigation into meat packing. And meat packing in the U.S. is controlled by 4 companies. And also, he's allowing more beef from Argentina and I believe Brazil as well to ease the pressure. In Canada, Ottawa has been mum. Hasn't said a word about what's going on. And so we have 2 packers in Canada, GBS and Cargill. 2 are foreign-owned private companies. Nobody really knows what's going on there. And nobody's asking to look into margins and things like that. So I do question why Ottawa is not saying anything. And there is a committee, an advisory committee, advising global affairs into imports, allowing more imports for beef. And they haven't met since 2015.
Are you surprised? I mean, we heard from that butcher there that the prices are high, but he says people are still coming through the door. Are you surprised that demand for this, what's become now in many ways a luxury item, has remained fairly steady?
I'm not surprised. I mean, Canada is known to be not addicted to beef, but we love beef. I mean, it's based on our numbers. So every 6 months, we publish the Canadian Food Sentiment Index. So we look at dietary lifestyles, protein-based dietary lifestyles, and Canada is not. We're not seeing more Canadians turning into vegans or vegetarians as a result of this. They're just consuming less. They're still buying beef, but they're buying less in volume.
We also have this obsession with protein, right? Where people are trying to get as much protein as possible. And some of that, I mean, you see social media does influence people. Influencers on social media talking about eating more ground beef, for example.
Oh, it's a big deal. So when you go to a grocery store, it's basically 35-40% of your budget. It's spent on protein, and that's why you're starting to see more products with extra protein. There are a lot more protein fortified products out there. Even Pop-Tarts have more protein these days, and coffee. So you can see that we have a lot of protein orphans out there looking for their protein fix beyond the meat counter.
So you don't believe that this is going to, I mean, not just steer people towards vegetarianism or veganism, but if the beef prices are high, it seemed like a few years ago we were talking about the rise of what people called fake meat. Meat substitutes. This isn't going to lead to a spike in kind of plant-based meat alternatives?
I would say, I mean, people are buying less and they're exploring other options. And I would include, of course, the most popular vegetable protein sources out there would be tofu, hummus, things like that. Lentils, chickpeas. Yes, people are exploring, not necessarily the hybrids like the, you just mentioned fake meat, but the products that are the analogs that we call them at the grocery store, they're there to build bridges between diets. If you're hosting and if you don't have time to prepare your own vegan or vegetarian food, it's there. But sales have been sluggish. People are more focused on other things. So it's quite interesting.
Let me just ask you just the last couple of minutes. People are getting into the period of the year now where ideally they're going to have a lot of people over. Maybe you're cooking a lot of food and you're wondering how much you're going to be spending. They're wondering whether these prices are going to come down. When could we see prices come down, or at the very least not rise as quickly as they are right now?
On the path we're on right now, I certainly don't see how beef prices will drop before mid-year 2027. That's in Canada's food price report that we released on December 4th. That's our prediction, and meat prices will continue to become a problem. And because of higher beef prices, all meat components at the meat counter are becoming more expensive, which is why I think Ottawa should look into this matter as quickly as possible, as what we're seeing in the U.S.
And what would, just in the last minute that we have, what would you want Ottawa to do? You said that these are structural issues, and you've written that they are politically uncomfortable to fix, but you can't ignore them anymore.
That's correct. So I would do two things. Well, actually, I would do three things. One, I would investigate into meatpacking in Canada. So looking at GBS in Cargill. Two, I would look at the TRQ advisory committee that has not met since 2015. I would basically ask, why aren't we meeting? Or why are we looking at beef imports a little bit more carefully? And three, I would call the chicken farmers of Canada and ask them, why aren't we producing more chicken in Canada? Whole chicken prices have gone up 27% this year. With supply management, that's unexcusable. We should actually see more stable prices regardless of what's going on with demand. So they've actually missed 9 cycles. So for a year and a half, Matt, they haven't produced enough chicken for Canadians. So I would ask that question to chicken farmers of Canada.
Sylvain Charlebois, good to speak with you as always. Happy holidays, and thank you very much.
Happy holidays to you too. Bye-bye.
Sylvain Charlebois is a professor and senior director of the Agri-Food Analytics Lab at Dalhousie University, also a visiting scholar at McGill University in Montreal. You've been listening to the Current Podcast. My name is Matt Galloway. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you soon.